What are your favorite states right now?
Texas.
Other than Texas, baby. Texas is always winning.
I like Florida a lot, but, what's hurt Florida so much is the insurance premiums.
We couldn't even get insurance on the property this week.
But, yeah, that's the only issue that I have with Florida is the insurance premiums are just too high, and, people get dropped out there. But, yeah, no, my favorite states are going to be Texas, Georgia, Florida. North Carolina is also a good one. The Sun Belt. And Tennessee. I like Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Man.
But Arizona and Nevada, they've got great vacancy rates.
Mm-hmm.
So does Oregon, but not as much. Same thing with Oregon as you have with Oklahoma is you got a good cash flow state and not always the best sales state, in my opinion.
Yeah. What's up, Cody?
Hey, what's up, man?
Man, good to see you, brother.
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Been a while. You can see how excited I was to come back, too.
I know, man. It was like missing old brother from home, man.
I know. I'm so glad to be back. We've been doing a bunch of traveling, working on Flex stuff in Austin, Nevada. So I spent some time in Vegas. Good times out there. Came back, Houston. Headed back to Austin. But, man, there's so many emerging markets that we're working on all across Texas. Buda, Gainesville, Pflugerville. I mean, just so many markets that you never heard of before. Or you probably have, but a lot of people outside of haven't. And
totally.
Flex is just it's just wildly successful in so many markets. It's just so insane to see that, you go to some of these markets like Buda and you see, in some areas they're getting 16, 17, 18 plus triple net. They don't even get that in downtown, just outside of downtown Dallas. They don't even get that in infill Carrollton. They don't get none of that there. And so, it's funny to see because people call all the time and they go, hey, we want infill. And we're always like, I get why you want infill. Tell us why you want infill. What is the benefit to it? Mm-hmm. And a lot of them think it is higher rates. They think it is, higher velocity leasing, better, vacancy rates. And sometimes that's true, but in many cases it's actually not. And so just like, out here, inside DFW, you've got, rates here, but, you go to other areas that are just outside, Anna Melissa, Argyle, those kind of typical areas, and their rates are better. Their expenses per square foot are less. And so their net take home, their base rate is doing much better in many cases. And so, but, all that's to each his own. I understand why so many people want infill because, it is a lot of times considered irreplaceable because, you can't just go plop up a flex park so easily in DFW as you can in outskirt markets. And so, that's why there is rush for it. But yeah, it's very good to be back. Very glad to be back.
On that topic, Cody, when it comes to infill lots, is it really we've looked at infill lots ourselves and for the most part, it just doesn't pencil, right? Infill lots.
Your build cost now.
Your build cost. Your dirt is really
the
kicker, right? The dirt cost is really a kicker in infill lots is that if you can find something in the middle of the Metroplex, why do flex base? I mean, let's just face it. You're better off probably doing something vertical.
Well, and not just that, but your competition is so much more fierce too, right? And, what I mean by that is say you want to go to Dallas and you buy, a flex park. I mean, you've got Link, which is owned by Blackstone. They have so much millions of square feet. And, they'll spend money on TIs, getting a new tenant. Their bottom line dollar is going to be different than a private investor's in many cases on what they're willing to spend as far as net return. And so, I mean, your competition is a lot more fierce. And, now you're, essentially, I look at it as, you're trying to sell, you're trying to compete against Walmart, right? And they're really not going to notice you in the airspace, but you'll notice them in the airspace. And so that's one thing that I always caution private investors that are buying infill is, be aware of that because the scale game is very real.
That's right.
And that's how rent control is done. Across every major city in any asset class is by, large corporations, large institutions, whoever, owning a lot of it, kind of setting the prices at that point. And it can be used to push you out. It can be used to drive things up. It can, be used for a lot of different things. But yeah. And what's funny? Some of the highest price per square foot that we've got have not been infill.
That's wild.
Which is another crazy thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me that the smart move is to be in new emerging cities, secondary markets.
I agree.
Let things grow around you.
Yeah.
If you have the right data and you get there early enough, not too early.
Yeah.
Just right on time.
Not 10 years early. No.
But right on time, then everything grows around you. And I think, that's certainly our business plan. Yeah. I know. Go steal it.
Go steal take it. It's a secret.
It's a secret. The secret is out now.
Yeah. Go find the closest Dollar General.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, you're absolutely right. It's finding the next emerging market. And, I think we've talked about this before, but master plan communities are becoming a bigger and bigger thing now where they're plopping down a lot of homes, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of businesses, you know, in an area outside of a metroplex or near a metroplex, and you know, finding these up and coming areas, you know, and solidifying yourself as, you know, the park there, and you know, just kind of benefiting from all that comes around those is, I think, where we're seeing most of the success come from in it. Not just buying a parcel on an outlier land and just building a little efficient model and hoping people come. I mean, those work all day long, but you know, you really also got to be aware of the economy that those areas run on too, right? Because you go invest in West Texas, the rents are better out there than they are in East Texas, right? Even though West Texas is heavy oil and gas and the rents can go up and down, you know, you at least understand that economy is being ran by this, right? And instead of going to a market like, you know, like a Waco or another tertiary market that doesn't have a big industry, and you really don't know what's running that market, and then you go through there and you look and you go, man, these rates are really not that good. And it's because, you know, that's another thing to keep in mind is when you're too far out and you don't have something that's really making that economy robust, it's really, you know, moving things along. That's why, you know, all those little pockets outside of Austin continue to do well, because bigger companies are going out there and doing stuff. And so, you know, just like a park that you're working on, you know, you got a piece of land and now you got Google building a big old facility over there. And so, you know, what that's going to do is help bring in some more infrastructure, maybe bring in some more homes, you know, bring in more workers out there, which bring in more businesses. And so I agree. In my opinion, I enjoy those kind of areas. I prefer building in those kind of areas than fighting on the infill. Infill's definitely a tough game. And I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's all about location and just, you know, being the best priced and competing that way.
On infill, is it possible to repurpose buildings?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people do it all the time. That's where the co-working flex has been coming from. They'll go buy existing industrial, splice it up, put their model in there. And there's also people that will buy existing industrial and put flex in there. I mean, you see it going on, you know, over there off Harry Hines, you know, over there off Stemmons. You know, they've been doing a lot of that.
Is that MTG?
No, I don't know who that is.
I know MTG's been pretty busy.
They've been doing quite a bit of stuff, you know, anywhere from small bay to large bay. But
they're an amazing company.
Are they?
Yeah.
I've never done any business with them, but I know they've done a lot of stuff. But there is a lot of opportunity in buying existing industrial and parceling out. But, you know, the issue that you have with that is the issue with everything is making sure that parking and, you know, everything kind of flows properly. And also your depth, you know, you can't get anything too deep, because last thing you want is a pencil-shaped space that, you know, you can barely fit a motorcycle in.
Right.
But you got 100 feet to go. And so, and that's how a lot of big box is. And so that's why you don't have as much of that. But, you know, I want to see, so, you know, since I've been gone, I know you've been making a lot of headway. I saw some plans in your office, some renderings.
Yeah.
So how are we looking on Midlothian and the other projects? Where are you at in those states? Because I think last time we talked, you were getting a couple different metal guys looking at it and getting some pricing going. Where are we at?
Yeah, so on Midlothian, we're doing amazing. In fact, we had calls this morning with our owner's rep, and we're just kind of fine-tuning the plan sets, making sure we haven't missed anything, you know, dotting our I's, crossing our T's. We are submitting permits now, and so we have some questions on like the electrical and plumbing. We're getting a few more quotes on that. We had, so for example, on the electrical, I had 4 quotes, and there was basically a 20% difference between the 4.
What was the reason for that?
Well, I would imagine it has to do with what they've called out, the type of product, you know, type of lighting, type of...
I know somebody was using aluminum, somebody was using copper.
That's right.
You know,
things of that nature. So those,
yeah.
But I think probably too, one of the things we just have to get to, we haven't done that yet, is to interview each one of those electricians and figure out, hey, what's in your invoice, your estimate, your bid that is causing such a difference between you and the other guys. But it's literally been a 20% difference. I'm talking about, I'll tell you the number. The lowest guy was 168.
Okay.
Third guy was 350 and some change, 550 and some change, and then all the way to 800.
Wow, they're looking to retire.
Yeah, I
they're
was like,
looking to sail
I called one of my good buddies, who's a developer, Timothy Windmiller, actually here in Burleson. I said, man, what do you think about this? He was like, man, you just got to talk to everyone and figure out what they priced out. I'm sure some gold-leafed, you know, electrical cords or whatever is going on. But other than that, we're in a really, really good place.
Okay. Were they all using the same power requirements? Like, were you doing like 220 amps to each space or 200 amps to each space? I mean, were they all going off the same thing, or were they just independently bidding it?
Yeah, so they're all independently bidding it off of our plan set, so they all have the same information, quite frankly. So it's going to be our interview process that's going to be able to kind of, in the itemization of their bid, that's going to probably be the telltale, right? Yeah. So right now, they've just given us more a formal bid with, you know, a number and certain things that they're meeting, but we got to get in the weeds and kind of look at a detailed, itemized bid. and that's going to expose the difference. But that's kind of where we're at right now, fleshing out the bids, getting through permitting.
Because I think your renderings are done.
Yeah, all that's
what you
done.
sent me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The plan set is done. It's
Okay.
been designed. It is like the ship is sailing.
Okay.
It's now who are we bringing along, right?
Gotcha.
But we're moving. The GC is picked. We just have a couple of the subs that we want to probably switch out.
Yeah. So one thing that I'll tell you, and it's funny that you mentioned it, when I was at that conference a few weeks ago, somebody was telling me about it, and they're like, man, it was just so high. And then somebody next to me goes, are they doing aluminum or copper? And it was an electrician.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy goes, man, I think it's copper. And he goes, switch it to aluminum.
Yeah.
And I guess that was a huge savings on it. And, I guess it's, to each his own on whenever they're doing it. But I don't know, maybe that's something that you ran into there.
Yeah. Well, even, for example, our plumbers, one of them bid copper lines, right? And
For the hot water?
yeah, instead of PEX,
I don't know who even uses copper soldering.
Man, I was like, bro, you might as well have said gold.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, do you mind if I switch it to PEX? I said, you better.
You better.
If you want this job.
Man, I haven't seen copper tubing, hot water tubing in a new flex build, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
It's always
no.
PEX.
Especially if it's exposed, man.
Yeah.
Some of the workers will be just chopping off at your...
He's going to be in there soldering copper lines. Trying to light that place on fire.
That's right, man. You'll have your workers stealing your copper, man.
Oh, jeez.
So, for example, I'll tell you one of the challenges, since we're talking about building, I think one of the challenges that I didn't expect was signage.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm a big design guy.
Yeah.
That really matters to me. I want to build Class A buildings that we can be proud of, in the next 20 years. But the signage, I mean, we had signage from, prices all the way up to $45,000 for a 14 by 5. It's a cool sign, but I'm like, man,
Yeah.
it ain't that cool.
No.
So we've found some interesting ways to still get the look by just changing out materials. So that's the big thing as a developer, right? Is learning where you maybe need to step back, right?
Yeah.
And redesign something that is still gives you the finished look and the element of what you're trying to accomplish. But switching out materials can make all the difference at driving your cost down, right? So, for example, the first signage was basically a concrete slab sign with kind of, I don't even know the proper terms for the signs.
So it probably looked big, bulky, and sleek.
It did. It looked really modern.
Yeah.
And it had kind of it wrapped in this aluminum around the concrete slab. And it's really cool. And it lights up.
Good.
Oh, man. Sexy. It's going to be the best sign in Texas.
And then you get the price and you're like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah. It's definitely going to be the best sign in Texas.
Yeah.
But so guess what we did? 45 was our first bid. We have it now down to 15.
Yeah.
Just by changing the concrete with aluminum. Just simple. And it still gives you that nice finish. We're still going to go, versus it being concrete now, it'll be aluminum, but it'll be kind of that polished, like silver look, right?
Yeah.
And then wrapped in blue, our colors, and with interior lighting. It looks still like it's virtually the same thing. Just switching on the material takes our price down by $20,000.
Well, you know what's funny is we were doing a retaining wall that was about almost 5 feet tall, pretty long, and we were going to do it in concrete. Looked at the price, it was about $50,000. We got those limestone blocks that are 5 feet wide, 2 feet tall, 18 inches thick.
Wow.
Lined it up, $16,000. Looks 10 times better than any concrete wall that long could look. Phenomenal. And so, but that was one of those things that you're talking about, like, finding something else that could substitute, but not, create diminished value.
That's right.
So signage is huge. We're big believers of signage. You can make money on signage. Signage lasts for a long time, but, it's very easy to get carried away with signage too.
That's right. And I think on flex spaces, unless you have major frontage, less is okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you have great frontage, then having the big old sign with everybody being able to display their business name is perfect. But if, like we're at in the Railport Park, it just doesn't make sense. Like it's same at Lothian Flex Parks is good enough. And then once people get in, they know their unit numbers and all that, and they'll see the sign over the building.
So let me ask you a question. On your plans, you've got the entrance of the spaces indented into the building a little bit, right?
Yes.
How far does that go in? 6 feet?
8.
8. What is the cost difference on that or keeping the building flat? What I mean by that, if anybody that's listening, is you got the building that's just completely flat on the front. Mm-hmm. What Steven's plans are is to actually indent the front end, almost like a bigger box retail style building. And obviously there comes a cost to that. What's the cost that you think that is for what you did there on the indention? Because obviously it makes it look significantly different. It really upgrades the appearance. Mm-hmm. It allows for every tenant in the book to be able to lease there. But as you know, it always comes with a cost. What is that that look like, you think?
You know, I didn't run the exercise to see the difference between two, but I would imagine it's costing me less because I'm using less square foot, like AC covered, right? Square feet. Like, I mean, that's just basically a covered patio, basically, or a covered entrance.
Yeah.
So it should be less.
I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. Do you think it would cost me more?
You know, I think that it in my opinion, I feel like it should, because you're no longer just using your standard beam that's just going up. Now they're kind of building something else additionally inside, and it's not all being sheeted. So they're doing a few more cuts in there. So it may be one of those things that, because of the indention, and I know the glass is what probably makes it more expensive than anything.
Yeah.
And so
14-foot glass by 12, man.
It's expensive.
It's expensive.
But it looks good, and, you know, as long as it's taken care of, it lasts. And, you know, that's one thing.
Yeah, but don't get my rents. I'm coming for you, Cody.
Yeah.
Because you voted for the glass.
No, I'm telling you, I think glass is just severely underrated, and nobody does it. And, you know, there's people that will go buy existing product just to put that glass in. And, you know, it comes at a cost. You know, I mean, I've seen it run as high as $50 a foot on the glass side, which, you know, if you're doing, you know, 10 by 10, I mean, what do you get, $5,000, something like that? And so, I mean, it is expensive, but it gives it a look and a feel that nobody else is really replicating right now. And, but yeah, I would think that indention may cost that, because there's a park that we were working on out near Houston, and it went up straight and then indented out, and that had an additional cost. But that was also coming outward as well, not inward.
Yeah. Well, structurally, it's virtually the same thing.
I would imagine, because they're probably not curving that front beam at all.
No.
They're just creating an additional one that comes in.
It's funny. I was on a conversation. I was having a conversation with somebody, and he'd asked me about our average square foot price, and it's obviously exceeding over $100 a square foot. He's like, "Oh man, you pay that much? I would think I could get it done for less." I said, "You can, but you ain't going to have an A-class product, baby." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're trying to make A-class product. If you want, you know, the little overhead door, 10 by 12, and an 8-foot entry door.
And every truck running into the side of the door because it's only 10 feet wide. Right. Yeah. No, I know.
You know, you can build for less than $100, but if you want a premium product, you got to pay more, and that's what the glass is, right? Like, we're paying a lot more square foot because of glass, but it's a type of tenant that we're looking for, right? We're not looking for the everyday tenant. We're not looking for the car mechanic. We're not looking for the radiator guy,
the body guy, the body shop.
I love them. They need shops, and that's why you other guys are building it for them. Keep building
it.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is, and I can tell when one of the guys in the office is getting perturbed with a buyer or somebody that calls in, because it's kind of similar. Like, you'll hear them, and and I get these calls too. I got one the other day where, you know, they're like, "Hey, how much is it?" And, you know, say, "Oh, it's, you know, X number of dollars," and they go, "Man, I could build it for less than that." And we're like, "Hey, get to it, baby. Don't call up." You know,
it's easier said than done. I can tell you that.
And so, yeah, I'll hear one of the guys on the phone, and they'll go, "Well, why don't you go build it? You know, if it's so easy, you know." And that's the reason why people buy existing parks, is to get ahead of the curve. And, you know, there's still a lot of benefit to it. But yeah, you know, we hear stuff like that all the time. I think one of my other favorite sayings is where somebody will say, like, if we evaluate something, and they'll go, "Man, you know, the county appraisal's higher than," like, "Well, why don't you see if they'll buy it?" And, you know, I don't know. There's not really an answer that we have for that, you know. Like, give them a shout, or, you know, "Oh, the bank appraised it for higher." And we're like, "Well, then you got your buyer built in. You don't even need us." But yeah, it's funny that people and it happens with any asset class. They'll always, you know, you always got those guys that, "Oh, I can build it for less." Less.
So we're part of several groups, but in the group, right, of developers, there's a reason why, you know, if you have 10 guys that get excited about it and want to build it, only actually one or two of them end up building it. And so there's a reason why it's difficult. It's I will tell you, this past year of building this side of the business and getting our pipeline full of sites, and now starting construction with our first one, and kind of getting through these projects, it's not easy. And you have to have the right team. You got to have the right people around you. You got to have the financing. You got to have the data, the analytics, and
the time, the patience.
100%. Every foot forward, man, is a fight, is a battle. I'm telling you, like, there's sometimes I get in the office, I'm like, holy cow, let me work on this. I mean, we've been working on signage for example, that's just a little piece. Signage for 2 months or so. Like, just getting the guys to answer your calls, start putting a quote together, doing the design. I mean, it takes a while. And every foot, any progress you make comes with a push. It's with a follow-up call. "Hey, do you have that quote ready yet? Once you get the quote, can I have a couple more options? It's like $40,000, you know? Yeah. Can we use some better material?" So you're constantly pushing and prodding till you get to your the desired,
But
outcome.
then you still got the work getting started and dealing with people on that front. I know a guy that bought a piece of land. He's 2 years in, still trying to get a text dot approval.
Right.
2 years in. And I think you and I know another guy who's pretty far in. That event.
Did you see that? Did you see that in my eyes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But no, and
we know some of the same guys.
Yeah. And so, and for example, that event that you and I went to a year ago that had, was it like 500 people in there? I think maybe 4 or 5 that I know of there are actually doing something.
That's right.
Which is 1%.
It's 1%, yeah.
And
that's
so,
about right.
But yeah, people don't realize how difficult it is. And I never try to run anybody off, but sometimes for a lot of folks, it makes more sense to purchase. And we get people all the time that call us with 10 million questions, and sometimes we just go, hey, you know what, it may be just in your best interest to either be an LP or to just buy existing. And that works out a lot for works out well for a lot of guys. But yeah, no, people don't realize that it's a big it's a big fight. It's fun, I enjoy it, but if you're dealing with investor money and a loan, it's not always as fun.
Yeah.
Because every day is money out of your pocket being taken out. Every day that park isn't built, isn't functioning, isn't renting, is money out of your pocket. And that's where syndicators and all these guys sometimes will lose, is because of how much they underestimate these projects, and especially if you're dealing with the city,
right?
That's when you really have a lot more, red tape and things like that going through. And so that's why we always tell anybody, if you're new, you never built anything before whatsoever, never done anything, do it out in the county.
I was going to say,
eliminate as much red tape as possible,
yeah,
and then kind of work your way up. But no, I mean, I'm telling you, there's guys, and I think you met one of them at the event that I had. Brian built that stuff up there. He was an independent guy, come from the medical sales field. He was like a medical sales rep.
Wow.
Built his first park. Ran into a bunch of hurdles here and there, got it done, and since then he's done like 4 of them.
Wow.
In a very short amount of time. And and he's kind of, now he'll tell you he's not even mastered it, but he knows where he's kind of run into all these issues and whatnot. And he even says the same thing, like, this build stuff's not easy. And I'd have trouble doing it with people's money, paying it out, month by month, because, it would just give you kind of anxiety and things of that nature. But yeah, understanding bottom dollar line, what you got to pay out, your timing is. Because also, that event that we went to, there were several people that bought land and are looking at reselling it. Because there was one that we were looking at actually in North Austin. They bought the land with investor money, couldn't get permits in time, interest rates are too high, and I think they just have cold feet now. They just want to sell the land, and they may end up taking a loss on it. And so, there's a lot of little stories like that, but that's in every asset class.
That's why I think as our listeners are tuning in, I think hopefully one of the things we've made clear on this podcast is all about planning. It's all about data. It's all about being organized and having process, about having guys like yourself there advising you on the brokerage side, so that by the time you make those large commitments, you already have a plan set. Like, if you're buying a property and then trying to figure it out, you've already lost, man. You're behind.
Yeah.
Unless land, right? Like, it. Like, you're making probably a mistake.
Very few of them do, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, we bought a property in Mansfield, and that's one we kind of just bought. I mean, we acted really quickly, and but one of the guys here in the office that knows land quite well, even though we weren't able to accomplish our industrial zoning for it, we were still able to sell it and make great money on it, And so, but that's because we had somebody in our office that knows land, But as somebody coming into a new emerging asset class, don't just go out there and buy land. Have a plan for it. Call your broker, get some insight, get some data, so you can survive another day.
Let me ask you this. I want to go back to your parcel, because you're working with it and on your build, and you're working with several metal builders at this point. And I know you've bidded that out. What have you seen in dealing with multiple metal builders? Because that's one of the biggest questions that we get from people all across the U.S., right? And as you know, metal builders are not always national companies, not even regional in many cases. A lot of them are very localized and just work in that specific area. What have you seen on the metal building side and people that you've talked to for your project? Any main key differences from some of those guys that you kind of see as a takeaway, like, hey, these are little red flags, or this is what they're all kind of honing in on, or the guys that manufacture the steel themselves are a little bit different? What are you seeing on that side?
I will say that the first thing that comes to mind is when you're calling one of these manufacturers, right? I think the people that I took serious, that I was like, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about this company, when they were willing to do the upfront work.
Yeah.
By getting some shop drawings done, right? They got your rendering, they got your plan.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're putting some equity in the deal themselves. They're putting the drawings together, and then they're giving you the pricing, right? That means a lot, because we priced it out with about 5 or 6 metal companies. and only 2 of them gave us shop drawings. Okay, and now this is not the full shop drawing. It's not like you can just take this drawing
It's
and
not
go
schematics. Yeah.
You can't go send this out to another company and get it done. No, but it's enough to kind of go, hey, this is how we would design it, right? So draftsmen got in there, started kind of doing some design work to a point that they can give you a fair price. Like, hey, this is about where you're going to be a square foot on building this building. There's one company that is a large national company that wouldn't do that. They just gave us kind of a price. They didn't do any shop drawings. And they even said, hey, we just want to, here's the price before we even go into doing shop drawings, right? But I'm like, these other 2 companies did the extra work to get me better, accurate pricing.
Well, and it also makes you a little more comfortable with it too, because you're actually visually seeing
That's right.
what they're bidding.
Right, and what they're capable of. And
because I'll tell you, that's one thing, funny you say that, I tell anybody, if they don't get those drawings from those companies, I feel like it seems like almost every time there's a rebid on the job.
Yeah. Oh, well, we didn't know you were going to put a 14-foot door on it and all this glass. Well, no, you did know.
Yeah.
You weren't paying attention. You're too lazy to look
the
through our
roof
plan set.
overhang that far.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And you're going to have that anyways,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause especially as when you're getting your preliminary numbers, that might not be your full plan set, right? You're just kind of getting some schematics, some renderings together, some layouts. And that's enough for the metal company to start putting some things together, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But once you give them your final drawing, there's going to be elements that they didn't account for, right? But they shouldn't shoot up the number by 20 or 30%. We're talking about minuscule numbers that, are not going to be able to kill your deal.
Yeah, like we
So
add
that
another walk-in door, that's another $180 for the frame.
That's right.
Stuff like that.
So I think that's the first thing that comes to mind, because I think that's, as people are going out there and dealing with metal companies, if they're not sending you any kind of drawings, that's how they're basing their price off of,
Yeah.
then that's a red flag, because it's probably not very accurate,
Well, prime example, somebody sent us a bid of a park the other day, and he goes, hey, what do you think about this? And it was just literally line item, 18 I-beams. I said, we sell these parks. I don't have a clue of what I'm looking at here. Like, I don't know. Because, it just had the line items of, this many I-beams, this many C-purlins, this many this many that. And I said, I don't know if that's enough to cover it. I don't build buildings, so I can't tell you. But I can tell you need to make sure this matches up with what is in your head, to what they're actually going to be sending out to the job site.
Right. And that's why you need the shop drawings, because they correlate, they call out
Yeah.
all of those materials, and they're all going to connect. And so if a company's willing to kind of do the work and kind of do some preliminary shop drawings, then what price they're giving you is correlated with that shop drawing, right? And it might not be the full set, but it's close enough to get you in the vicinity of where you need to be. So
So the ones that didn't do a shop drawing, they're out.
They're out.
They're out.
They're out. And quite frankly, one of them was a well-respected company that I think probably would have done well, because I know some other people have ordered from them. But for me personally, I want to deal with a company that understands, hey, these guys are going to be pumping out these buildings, right? I want great future relationships, because I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a lot of these buildings.
Yeah.
You may not know that, but I know what I'm doing, and I want people that believe in that sense that. Those are the people that will do the extra work. Like, hey, this guy's going to build some buildings. Let's give him a proper bid. Let's give him an accurate bid, and let's put the work in, and hopefully he reciprocates,
Well, and anybody that's got kind of that free service that's built into their business model, it's no different than, Discount Tire. They'll fix if you got a hole in your tire, whatever, flat tire, they'll generally try to fix it for free, so they can get your tire business later on, right? And it's no different than us. We do our world engines. We do that for people all the day for free, in hopes that we can get the investment sale at some point. And so, there's a dime a dozen on the metal building side, but there's very few, I believe, that are of very good quality and trustable.
That's right.
And there's a group that we used on a project years ago that we actually had to let go in the middle of the project because they were so bad.
Wow.
And, I've seen enough buildings to know, if it's a good weld job or not, and these were not good weld jobs. And so, we had to let them go. We had to hire somebody to come in, fix it up, keep it going. And so there's a lot more bad metal builders, in my opinion, than good. And so that's why it's very important to source them out. That's why if they don't do plans, in my opinion, or not willing to do it, it's kind of an initial red flag to look at.
Yeah, it just means they're either too busy,
which is fine,
or they're lazy.
Yeah,
and
either also fine.
They're just not a good choice for me.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say too.
Did each have a different opinion on steel gauge or anything of that nature? what they thought
No,
supporting weight?
they were actually pretty. Most of them called off the right gauge.
Okay.
They were all pretty even. The one thing that we talked about too in the beginning was weld up versus bolt up.
Yeah.
And so I would recommend that new developers use bolt up. And here's one of the reasons why. Just the story you explained, right? With weld up, you are entrusting whoever the erector is to be a great
Welder.
So I can take a gamble on somebody screwing in bolts and tightening bolts, right?
It's easier to see.
That's easier to see, easier to deal with. But man, when it comes to this welding stuff,
I don't know if that metal's melted enough to connect. Yeah, I know what you mean.
right? Now, of course, you can have third-party inspectors that can help you address the welds and make sure they're of good quality. But I'm not a welder. I can't tell, but I think I can tell if a bolt is like too loose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
I can grab my hanger and bang on it for a second.
You can ask my father. I got a small stick welder, and he wanted me to fix a gate at his house years ago. And I went over there and I welded this thing. And a real welder probably would have spent about 2 minutes on it. I think I spent about an hour and a half on it.
Right.
He went to shut that gate. That thing fell clean off. And I said, yeah, I think there's your problem.
Yeah.
You got a bad welder. And I thought I did a good job.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But, it's an art to
It is an art.
To melt metal here, melt metal there, and kind of mix it together. I mean, it is an art. But
yeah.
I agree. A lot of people do take the safe route on the bolt up. A lot of times the schematics on those are, very direct, very, they're built to really just be erected up. The only issues that I ever see on those is sometimes when people put the plates down, sometimes they're off a little bit. Just ran into that to a project this morning, as a matter of fact. One of the metal plates that was put into the concrete was off just a few inches. And so, but that can happen on any deal, weld up or bolt up.
All right.
But yeah, I see a lot of people first starting at it going on the bolt up side. And a lot of those are standard kits too that you can find pretty easily on the bolt up, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, hey, I want 90 feet or, 120 feet wide by 60 feet, whatnot. I mean, they sell bolt up kits like that. No problem.
Another thing too I would add is the metal company should be asking questions, right?
Yeah.
And they should be making suggestions as well, how to drive your costs down to help you have the most efficient build, especially the smart ones, because they're trying to earn your business, right? And if somebody else is giving you the right info and helping you mitigate your cost and they're not, they're losing out on a job. So the smart guys are doing what they need to do to make sure you have an efficient, strong building, but at the same time, not overbuilt and certainly not underbuilt either, right?
Yeah.
You want to have something that's still standing when the wind blows, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And so... in fact, we have ours rated, I believe. This is not Midlothian; it's actually another site where the wind load that they've built up to is 107, and I think I want to get it to about 140. So I'm going to have some questions and some suggestions, like, "Hey, I know you kind of did the minimum, to stay within code, but let's kind of
put some braces and some cables on it.
Let's brace it up a little bit more. Like I don't want to be in the office and all of a sudden I'm flown out the window. You know?
Well, and what's funny is a lot of the metal buildings, some of the typical reinforcements as you see are the cables that they'll put in. They'll X them to kind of tie them together so those I-beams can't, collapse into one direction. Someone will also put those cross ties up top, in a V shape, going onto the C purlins as well. We do those on everything because those purlins up top, they do have a little bit of bend to them, which they need a little bit of that.
Right.
But having that extra support, will keep it really stationary. Yeah. And so there's a lot of little things like that you can do. I don't know, the metal companies kind of determine the wind rating on it. I know a lot of their panels have the same kind of wind rating, but yeah, depending on the area.
And two, one of the things that was important too for us is that the company we work with has been around for a while.
Yeah.
So the three companies that it kind of came down to have been at least in business for 25 years plus.
There you go.
And so that was important to us, because we need a warranty on this building.
Yeah. What's funny is you talked about cost savings. A guy sent us a price on a deal, and it was a very standard build. I want to say it was 150 or 160 feet wide by 50 feet deep. Was what he was trying to do, and he got the price, and it was really high, and it was actually bid at like 54 feet deep. And just by going over that amount of footage, upgraded the steel, and it was kind of more of a custom size. And so that's why we had convinced them, hey, let's just bring it back down to a standard number, to a 50, not a, an even number to where you're trying to maximize your square footage, which, and so people run into that all the time. And I've seen metal contractors do that all the time. Rodney, a guy you and I know, we were actually looking, and he was talking on a job, and I heard him tell the guy, hey, instead of doing that at 75, let's just back it down to 70 and we'll save you a lot of money. And, that's just a pretty quick and easy input for somebody to do, because, if you don't tell them, they'll just do it and spend it and move on down the road.
That's right.
Because you do upgrade steel over, at certain depths. You do end up putting center columns in also at certain depths. And so, those are things that people always try to stay away from, is doing those two things.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it's important to know. Well, good. It sounds like everything's rocking and rolling.
Yeah, and good news too. What? With the interest rates went down about 50 basis points, right?
Yeah, what really that did is, so, we don't have a whole lot of issues selling anything right now, but I know it helps out a lot of people that are wanting to build, wanting to get into the space. What I see in that is whenever you drop it 50 basis points, it basically says, hey, we're going to be dropping this thing. And so I think it tells a lot of people look at it and go, I'm going to wait and let it go lower. And so I was at a lunch day with the title guy, and they were telling us, their multifamily business is still real slow, but it's starting to come back a little bit.
If anything, I think it's going to be the last to come back up. Probably going to be
office will be, office will be hanging out. Yeah, you don't forget about office. Yeah. It's like, hey,
office
I'm still
is
here.
definitely the redheaded stepchild currently.
Yeah, which for the longest time it was.
No offense to your redheads.
Yeah.
Brandon.
Or your office owners. Brando. That ain't red hair, is it? No, it ain't red hair.
It has a little hint of red.
Is it?
It was a lot more red, right, earlier in your life?
Yeah, until he dyed it.
Yeah. He's at the control, so we can't talk about redheads. Not even with slight tint of red. He might shut us off.
Might close us down. But no, I mean, you've got so many people in those asset classes. Like office was the darling child forever. That was where institutions were spending their money at. Mm-hmm. Now you got people just literally running for the hills out of that asset class. And a lot of those guys are coming to this asset class. There's one that we actually sold a pretty big project to recently, and they were predominantly large office investor. And they said, man, we want to go in this flex direction. We like it. We like the intangibles. We like the TI costs are so much less, because that's what kills these office guys is such high TIs. And so, and also the time on market, lease space, sublease space. I mean, the vacancy rate across the U.S., I mean, it's hurting it quite a bit. And so with so much influx coming from other asset classes, we're not struggling to sell stuff. But I know on the build side, I think what it may do is maybe help some of those guys that have been sitting on the sidelines wanting to get into it.
So have you seen things slow down since we're facing the election?
So typically it does slow down before the election, right? So we're, 20 days away from it right now. Typically it does slow down. I think it probably has. I mean, we're still pretty busy, but I think it has slowed down as compared to where it was this time last year. And so I think no question, it'll pick back up right after, regardless of who gets elected. I know there's a lot of people that have concerns with who gets elected, but I mean, as you know, what happens after every election, we're pretty much just back to business as normal. It's usually just talk more than anything.
Yeah, no one's going to move to Canada or Mexico.
I mean,
their butts are going to be right here, going back to work, clocking in.
Man, I love it out here. I'd never move. I had a great time in Vegas, but it's not a place that you want to live at. I can tell you that.
That might as well be another country, right?
Shoot, yeah, it was. But it was a good time. I tell you, we're looking at a flex park out there, 220 foot.
Really?
In Nevada, yeah.
220. My Lord, that's expensive real estate.
And Nevada has a very low vacancy rate on flex, and definitely needs some build out there.
Is the problem with Nevada? You tell me. My perception is probably wrong, but I'm always fearful of Nevada. I feel like that's one of those economies that it's very cyclical. The word it's kind of up and down.
Yeah, it is, and it can be. But you do have a lot of people from California have moved there, just like Arizona. And so you've got a pretty good base of residents coming over, spending money, and that's what's helped it out so much. I think you're thinking of old Nevada 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Okay.
I think today's Nevada economy is significantly better.
Wow.
Just like Arizona. I think that stat that I brought last time, I think it was sitting at like a 5% vacancy factor on flex with new build going up, which that's doing better than Colorado. It's doing better than Texas. It's doing better than a lot of other states when it comes to vacancy factor. But one thing to also keep in mind is investing in some of these states, you are either investing in cash flow. Like if you're looking to build, and this is what I tell people all the time whenever they give us a state that they want to build in, we go, okay, are you looking for cash flow or are you looking for inevitably selling this deal? Because like if you're going to go build in Oklahoma, we call that a cash flow state. The flex does very well. It cash flows well. But when you go to sell it, you're not getting the highest prices you would in maybe a Texas or a Georgia or a Florida. And so understanding, that investment model is very important because people go build in cash flow states, and some of those states don't have as much out-of-state money investing into it, hence not as high a sales price. But yeah, no, you've got a lot of good stuff going on, Nevada and Arizona.
What are your favorite states right now?
Texas.
Other than Texas, baby. Texas is always winning.
I like Florida a lot. I know it's getting hit with pounded with hurricanes.
And I'm talking about Florida, man. We got a house right now that's sitting just waiting to be.
Oh, God, yeah.
Waiting for the...
But, what's hurt Florida so much is the insurance premiums.
Yeah, man. We couldn't even get insurance on the property this week, unfortunately. We closed on it, 2 weeks ago? No.
In Florida?
Week? Yeah, we closed on that deal last week. Can't get insurance on it because of the incoming storm. So we're just...
Why didn't you send Nate down there to strap it down?
I know. We're praying.
I figured...
Good thing it's a gut. So long the house still is standing...
Yeah,
we don't care about the sheetrock getting wet. We're gutting it anyway. So I think we're going to be okay. But certainly, let's pray that the storm doesn't hit because we know our deal will be okay, but there's a lot of families that won't be. So yeah,
absolutely,
unfortunate.
But yeah, that's the only issue that I have with Florida is the insurance premiums are just too high, and people get dropped out there. A friend of mine, I don't feel bad for him because of how he phrased it, but he's like, man, it got so bad out there, I had to get rid of one of my vacation homes, and I was like, I don't even have one vacation home.
That really sucks.
One of mine?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, sorry. You got to go to California in the summer.
It makes you wonder if Florida, especially of late, is it worth it? I mean, all these hurricanes. I mean, like...
I tell you, there's a lot of flex and developers that are in Florida not building in Florida. And that tells you that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them say it's because of the insurance premiums.
Yeah.
And so, but, it's no different than, people, not as many people from outside of California investing in California, right? Just because of pricing, because of, some of the taxing laws, investing there and pulling money out. Because if you're a resident of Florida and you invest in Texas, you can invest in Texas and move money about pretty freely. But there are certain tax implications with some states if you're not a resident of that state. And so I don't know if you know that or not, but that's why so many people from other states invest in Texas, because we don't have that huge sale transfer tax that you see in some other states and the numbers can sometimes be huge. It can be like $500 per $10,000. I mean, it's a pretty wide range. I'm not super familiar with it because we're based in Texas and we don't have a lot of people investing in other states, like California and whatnot. Nobody in Texas, like, do you know anybody in Texas that's invested money in California? Real estate is like an investment in Flex Park or anything like that.
Yeah, not like that.
Yeah,
there's some institutional people, but that's different.
Yeah, and you may have somebody that has like a vacation home or something like that, but nobody's like, man, I own an office building out there. I own a beautiful retail center out there. You just don't find that from people and residents of other states. So, but yeah, no, my favorite states are gonna be Texas, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina is also a good one.
The Sun Belt.
The Sun Belt, and Tennessee. I like Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, Brandon, we've got all the best states we need to go after now.
There you go. Like I said, but Arizona and Nevada, they've got great vacancy rates. And so does Oregon, but not as much. The same thing with Oregon as you have with Oklahoma is you got a good cash flow state and not always the best sales state, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, man, I love this session. I'm excited about next week.
So we got Will Gibbons coming in. He's a debt broker. Done a lot of business with him. Solid guy, great individual, good personality, fun guy. He's always at events doing stuff. Very knowledgeable on the debt side, not just buying existing, but also building new. And so he'll bring some really good insights on debt. And I've actually did a little poll with a few guys that are getting into the investment side. And I said, hey, some of your top questions that you got for debt guys. So we're going to hit him with those. I don't want to show it to him before he gets here. I want to hit him with some good ones.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Kind of throw him some curveballs.
Yeah.
See if he survives.
Yeah. Like, hey, who are you voting for? Like some good stuff.
Who are you voting for, Cody?
Man, everybody knows who I'm voting for.
Except for this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I tell you what, no matter who gets voted in, there's one thing that won't change.
I'll still be your friend.
That's right.
I'll still be your friend.
Oh man, it's what a time. What a time.
It's a great time to be alive and to realize that. I think what's great about this is a lot of people are realizing, you know what, the government does whatever they do, and I need to just really protect and invest in myself and my family.
That's right.
And we will create our own future. We don't need the government or anybody else creating it for us.
That's right.
And that's what I take away from all of it is, you know what, they can throw all this stuff around. At the end of the day, me and my family, we sit down and we make the decisions on how our future is going to be.
Yeah. You got to sometimes in these situations trust in a higher power.
Yeah.
And for whatever that is for you, but for me, it's Jesus Christ, of course.
Yeah.
But,
And Jeff Bezos, he gets us the packages on time.
And Amazon. Jesus and Amazon.
Do you trip over the Amazon boxes when you get home sometimes?
Yeah. He is Jehovah Jireh. No, I'm kidding.
Well, good. Well, I look forward to next week, and I always appreciate it. I'm glad to be back.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.
All right.